the most pressing concerns executives and board members have as we head into 2024? Why is client retention seemingly harder than ever? And are you ready for ChatGPT to be riding shotgun on your summer vacation? Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is AI Know-How from KnownWell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. As always, I'm joined by KnownWell CEO David DeWolf, Chief Strategy Officer Pete Buer, and Chief Product Officer Mohan Rao. We also have a discussion with Ingrid Curtis, President of Sparq, about how her organization is already seeing AI being used in new and innovative ways in the areas of healthcare, financial services, transportation, and more. But first, the news. Pete Buer joins us as always to break down some of the latest AI headlines and how they apply to your business. Hey, Pete.
Hi, Courtney. How are you?
I'm doing good. So our first story this week, Pete, Google is said to be considering laying off 30,000 people due to operational efficiency gains in their ad sales placement. The story first broke in The Information and has been picked up by a ton of different news networks. Pete, what do you think about this news?
Courtney, my sense on this one is that it's a big deal. There's so much going on in this headline. My first reaction was, holy crap, 30,000 people. That's a ton of people. But then I got to think, well, shoot, Google's a big company, right? Maybe proportionally it isn't all that huge. No, Google's 180,000 people. So my second reaction was, holy crap, that's a ton of people. On the one hand, it's reinforcement of our belief of just how powerful AI can be in rewriting the rules of business. Advertising is a core, business for Google, and this move will totally change the economics of that business for Google. What I'm surprised I'm not seeing more of in the commentary is some messaging from Google on how the people who are affected will be handled. 30,000 is a ton. And there's I crawled through a bunch of other articles, and there's some evidence that 30,000 is just the affected group. And maybe they won't all be laid off. Maybe some will. Maybe new jobs will be created. Maybe there'll be some restructuring, that's moves as opposed to layoffs. But that will all be at the margin. In the main, this is going to be a big staff action. And I want to read how Google's taking the plight of the individual to heart, and stewarding talent to the next stage on their journey. And I'm just not seeing that. That's not to say it's not happening behind closed doors, and you hope that it is, because I think at the end of the day, shareholder value creation will be a function, yes, of creating businesses that are effective and efficient, but also making sure you've got workforces that are engaged and deployed against the highest value activities. And so I think it's, 1 + 1 = 3 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think this one is a hard one to digest. I do think it's worth, starting to examine when we hear stories like this of how they are engaging, how they're doing the things that you're talking about. And certainly we can all be the judge of picking up the things that we think are being done well and the things that we want to do better in our businesses. Absolutely. So yeah, very interesting news out of Google. It'll be interesting to see if more comes out. All right, Pete, in an effort to lighten the mood a little bit here, buckle up for this one, pun intended. According to Reuters, Volkswagen vehicles will converse with drivers via ChatGPT by mid-2024. This news was announced at the annual Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. What's the business angle on this story, Pete?
Well, this is just one of what will ultimately be many examples of the quote-unquote mainstreaming of generative AI. In our 2024 predictions episode, David said this is the year that we'd see AI become deeply woven into the fabric of our lives. And what do we, at least Americans, hold closer in our lives than our cars? I was told by way of my cartoons when I was growing up that we'd be driving flying cars now. And so I know there's a couple out there, but we're not all kind of, trying to navigate traffic in 3D. So it should at least be time that we can give voice commands to crank up the AC or move our seat around a little bit. I think this stuff is totally cool. To make it practical, if you're a business executive and trying to make sense of the angle on this, like step back and recognize, this is a highly regulated industry. This is a big company. Sure, it's got resources, but things tend to move pretty slowly in these automotive manufacturing businesses. And if Volkswagen is already getting to market, I guess in the summer with an application like this, the agile middle market professional services company should at least have a menu of experimentation lined up and should be plowing forward trying to figure out what's going to come to market the fastest to have the greatest impact.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I am very excited to be ordering my Volkswagen. No, that's not true. But I am excited to have some of this voice technology and AI technology at our, not at our fingertips, at voice command here pretty soon. Pete, thank you as always.
Love it, Courtney. Talk to you.
David DeWolf and Mohan Rao have been spending a lot of time recently on a listening tour with other executives. They've been talking with C-suite leaders at companies of all shapes and sizes to find out what some of their biggest challenges are and where AI can help. David, Mohan, hi, how are you?
Oh, doing great. Happy New Year. I guess we can still say that. I know we've been back, but it still feels it.
Borderline.
Happy New Year.
Mohan, you doing good?
I am doing great. How are you? How was holidays?
Doing good. Wonderful. Thank you for asking. This year, as we're getting into 2024, we've talked about opportunities, we've talked about threats. I would like, on behalf of the audience, to actually get inside of some of the boardrooms, some of the discussions that are happening at the highest level of organizations. And I know that you two have had some access recently to quite a few boardrooms. And so I want to throw this out to you and see, what have you been learning? What are boards struggling with, thinking through? What are the challenges that are happening practically, boots on the ground, inside the boardroom?
Courtney, so that's a really interesting question, because we've been spending really the last 4 months since we started the business having conversations with customers, and those conversations are in the boardroom and amongst the C-suite, and really listening to what are the pain points that corporate America is really wrestling with right now. And one of the real caveats that I always put out there whenever I'm doing this type of customer feedback, a lot of listening sessions, is when we have something like AI, it's easy to interpret the entire world through that lens. And so it's easy to go in looking for problems to apply the tool to. And I've been very intentional about not doing that. The first one is information overload. Organizations are drowning in data. They have way too much information, and candidly, leaders don't know how to apply it and use it. And they're swimming. In fact, I find it really compelling. There's research done by Oracle that backs this up. It's not just an anecdote, but it says that 91% of leaders say that the access to information and data that they have is actually undermining their decision making. Fascinating statistic that backs up what we're hearing. And we are hearing that organizations see that as such as a problem that they're spending millions of dollars and years of time trying to implement, modern data stacks, business intelligence solutions, and those types of things. Yet even when they turn it into great dashboards and insights, they're struggling to get leaders to adopt it and turn it into action and drive crisp execution out of it. And I would say that is probably the biggest theme that I hear in 98% of organizations, is this information age we live in is getting the best of us. Number two, I am hearing over and over again about customer churn. Organizations are really struggling to get their hands around their customers, their relationship with their customers, and really understanding their state of mind, what they're going through. Not only are organizations experiencing customer churn, which you would kind of expect given the volatile economy we've had, right? But they are surprised by it. They're continually caught off guard. And that really strikes me in this information age, that we have so much information and data, yet we don't know what our customers are doing, and we can't predict that they're going to leave us, never mind what opportunities they have for growth. And that is striking to me. With those two themes, I think that over and over again, this information overload concept has come to me, and that we're actually not able to use the information and data that we have to drive operations and execution and decisions. The final thing is a little bit more nuanced, but it is related to that, is that the gap that I'm seeing is that companies are struggling because they're focused on their managed data and their structured data. What I mean by that is enterprise information that we have traditionally tried to make sense of. But the reality is the rich information, when you think about this example of customer sentiment and whether they're actually getting value out of your service or your product, the rich information is not in some tool somewhere where they answered an NPS survey or they engaged with your formal support. The real information there is in nuanced communication. It's in informal information exhaust that exists on the public web or somewhere else in the organization. It's not managed, it's not structured, so it's not even being brought into the data equation. And so while that one's not spoken, I hear the ramifications of it over and over and over again. So I would say those are the three themes that I have seen. Number one, information overload and a real struggle to turn all the information we have into action. Number two, customer churn, trying to get our hands around customer intelligence and how do we really know our customers. And number three, implicitly, the subtle ignoring of the richest information that we have out there, which is in our informal communications and how we talk to each other.
That's really fascinating. In a way, kind of what's happening is businesses have always been run through gut feel or through rules of thumb, right? So when X happens, you do Y, right? So that's an instinct as business leaders most people have, and it's worked for many, 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 many decades. But with this information overload that you're pointing, that creates a new type of problem here because it just gets cascaded on where the gut feel that you had no longer works. And it's also a function of scale.
That's a great point. It not only works, but even if it did work, it's so hard to consume the amount of information that we have, right? We have more connections now than we've ever had, right? Think about LinkedIn, think about Facebook, all of the data points that I have in all of my relationships. It's just exploded the number of people I can keep track of. And then the information channels have also multiplied as well. So it's not just through LinkedIn that I communicate with people. It's through email and text and Slack and Google Spaces. And I mean, just go on and on and on. Like I could sit here for 10 minutes listing out the platforms that we speak through. And so the multiplication of that information, even in a world where that gut is still relevant, you just can't keep up with all of it.
Yeah. So on the one hand, they already have too much data, and yet they're ignoring this other vast amount of data. So you're kind of in the boardroom, it's too much. Mm-hmm. Currently, there's not an answer to that at this moment. Or is there? Maybe
No, I think it's what we're, as an industry, struggling with, right? Is we all see the power of data and information, yet we haven't figured out how to harness it, right? Like, we definitely know if you go look at the great businesses out there, they're driven by data and analytics and information, and you make database decisions. Yeah. That's easy to say. It's really hard to do. And organizations are having to spend way too much money right now to actually make sense of the information and the data we have. And my sense is we've just hit a point where the information scale is too big for our ability to digest as human beings, right? And so we've got to figure out how to lean on and leverage the machines, not just for the creation of data, right? This data and information has exploded because of all of these IoT devices we have out there, all these communication channels helping us collect more of it. Now we have to use it for processing, right? To actually turn it not from data and information, not even to insights. The whole world's going to talk about insights. I want intelligence, right? And the difference is the taking, something interesting, but turning it into an ability to act on it and do it, telling me what to do. Don't make me go and figure out how I turn it into something I can do.
Yeah. A solution here possibly is to decouple prediction, meaning taking all of the information that's coming in and getting that into nuggets of predictive facts or insights, you can call it, and decouple that with judgment, right? So the judgment can come only from humans, right? Even when we think of AI as judgment machines, they're not. They're really kind of codified human judgment that's there in code, right? But what machines can really do well is the power of prediction and just enable it for the humans to make better judgment. And that is one way to get leverage with the problems that you're describing, David.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And this concept comes back of inference and what is it? Why is AI different, right? What the AI can do not only tell you the right answer for a problem that has one right answer, but it can give you solutions for problems that may have multiple right answers, right? That are options, and it can use the probabilistic nature to begin to answer some of those types of things. And then I agree with you, the judgment, what it's doing is applying our judgment, right? Judgment is taking those inferences and applying values and principles and beliefs. Well, it can take our values, principles, and beliefs and help us start to put it together. But I think breaking it down and starting to understand those different aspects of how the human mind works and how we make these decisions is a really helpful concept.
So I want to just recap what you said. You said information overload and really adding the turning those insights into action, the customer churn and the growth from that, being able to retain our clients, and then prioritizing, also utilizing all of this rich natural communication data points within the organization, which is such a dichotomy of, different kind of competing problems in some way. Totally. So you two, and Mohan especially, where do we go from here? Can you give us what's the hope on the horizon here with these problems that we've seen over and over and over again in 2023?
It really comes down to answering two key questions in terms of what the AI technology can provide for us, right? So one is around, if you think about what is AI giving us, it is the power of prediction. It's a predictive technology. It is probabilistic predictions that it gives, right? So that is sort of one answer. And the second question to answer is, if we could have that technology in the enterprise, how would you reimagine your company, the business model, the business processes, and run with it? So those are the two questions to answer, and therein lies the solution to your question.
For those of you listening, I hope this helped you think through not just deploying AI to deploy AI in your organization, but really thinking through what are the big problems that you need to solve in your organization? What would really move you forward? Hopefully this was interesting to help you start that thought process. David, Mohan, thanks as always.
It was fun.
Thanks.
You said it's fun. Actually, this was terrible.
That was fun.
If you listened to the show last week, you may remember that KnownWell announced a $2 million pre-seed funding round to build the world's first intelligent enterprise operating system. You'll be hearing more about what we're building on next week's episode, but for now, you can go to knownwell.com to join the beta waitlist. Go to knownwell.com, right now, and join the list. Ingrid Curtis is the president of Sparq, a professional services organization that helps companies in healthcare, financial services, construction, and more accelerate their digital transformation journeys. This gives her a keen view into how AI is being deployed across a variety of industries. Pete Buer sat down with Ingrid to find out where she sees AI making an impact now and in the future.
Ingrid, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pete. Glad to be here.
If I could ask to orient our listeners, could you give us a snapshot of Sparq and your role?
Happy to. I'm the president at Sparq. We are a digital engineering consultancy, and we're designing and building and launching digital applications and products for mid and large size companies, specifically in transportation and logistics, financial services, and healthcare. We go to market with a U.S. blended onshore as well as a nearshore delivery model. And we've been in business for about 15 years with almost 1,000 people.
And let's start high level and fun on the doomsday scale, the AI doomsday scale. As you know, we focus on AI and its implications for business. Where are you on the continuum of, oh my gosh, going to drive the business in spectacular ways to, oh my gosh, going to drive the business into the ground?
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge believer in the acceleration potential of AI. I think if you look at what has happened in the industry over the last, really COVID, pre-COVID through now, there's been an obsession with speed to market. And I think the opportunity to gain those efficiencies will only drive that end user expectation of even more functionality coming at them even more quickly.
Nice. In what ways, as you think about your customers, the folks that you serve, in what ways is AI helping them, or for that matter, you, with speed to market?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our clients are sitting on treasure troves of data, and they are looking at ways in which they're leveraging all that they already know. They're leveraging ways of looking at competitive analysis and other data from the industry and thinking about how they can use that to drive their businesses forward. And so I think we're seeing not just the opportunities for Gen AI, but also those opportunities for more broad use in every application, and how they're continuing to inform their users, bring more value, and drive their businesses forward.
And I guess in this particular episode of the podcast, we're focusing on client retention in particular. Are you seeing specific applications in the context of what you just described that are driving change in client retention?
I think if you think about client retention, it is a formula of building trust, being easy to do business with, and really driving highly valuable outcomes for our clients. And so as you think about how you leverage AI to do that, we're able to leverage the brain trust of Sparq versus just the individuals that are on the project. So we've built internal AI tools that allow our engineers to access a lot more depth and frameworks and tools and insights that have been leveraged across our organization. And so I think, tools like that are positioning us to add that greater value for our clients. And then I think, as we think about riding alongside our clients in their AI journey, right? It's at every board level is talking about AI and how they're leveraging it. And so every organization is looking at their service providers to say, how are you helping me in that journey? And I think that's also an important part of what we're doing is really having that open conversation with clients beyond Gen AI, and how we can learn and leverage their data and prepare them for that next AI revolution.
I'm so fascinated by the is it digital engineering? Was that the right term to capture the work that you do? Can you give us, without naming names, can you give us an example of something that you've built, something AI driven that you've built to help customers with their retention?
If you think across the work that we're doing in the healthcare space, there is a lot around the patient experience. And you think of just, we each have our own struggle with healthcare and how we're trying to identify ways for our family to be healthier and use and leverage the resources around us. And so there are organizations out there, and that one particularly that we've worked with in the past that is thinking about how they're leveraging AI and machine learning, and a lot in the space of driving access based on your personal DNA and profile of which cancer treatments would potentially have the highest likely positive outcome for you or your loved one. And so, as we're thinking about the work that we do, we're having this major impact leveraging AI and other tools to the end user, to that end patient.
And talk about the end user, that's like humanity as the end user, and not just the customer.
Exactly.
How inside the customer organization does the conversation go when they're trading off like this concept versus that concept versus this concept, and they're trying to get a bead on maybe ROI is the right way to think about it, because when we describe the impact that we just talked about, it's not just a bottom line or revenue thing, right? It's actually making the world a better place. As you're helping them to build products, are you present at this kind of a conversation, and how does it go?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's kind of this roller coaster of understanding, and you think about the hype cycle of technology, right? And there's initially security concerns, fear of how do we access that data? How is that legal? How are we compliant? What ways is that going to how do we need to think about this framework, this new framework of working? But then I think you start to get to this 50,000 foot view, or this, you're kind of looking at the horizon and thinking about the major impact that it could have exponentially on their business, on their outcomes, on their impact to society, to your point, right? And so I think people, you start in the place of there's a lot to think about, but then you quickly leap to where could this possibly go? And so I see clients that they see the operational efficiency, right? There's always efficiency you can drive with AI. We all know that.
Yep.
But they have their eye on spending time in that space. So we build that expertise and that expertise at the organization level, so that we're ready for how do we drive the business forward in big exponential leaps.
You mentioned part of the value that you add is accompanying customers on their AI journey. If it's a journey of 1,000 miles, how does that one go? Like, where are we overall? Like, there's all kinds of data about how, X percent of jobs are going to be rewritten by AI and so forth. Mm-hmm. Like, is it early days? Are we well on the path?
You look at tools like IntelliSight and others. We've had opportunities like this for decades. I think we're finally past the slow moving portion of this journey, and now we're into the speed event. And if you think about that speed event, nice. We are in the early days. I think one of the challenges that AI has, you think about generative AI, we're seeing great leaps and bounds for our more senior and principal architect level developers. They have years of experience writing every single digit of code, right? And so that experience is helping them to leverage Gen AI tools far faster, far more effectively than our junior developers. And so not only are we we can talk about that 40% efficiency, but we also have to talk about how are we educating that next round of engineers that are coming out of college or coming out of boot camps, and thinking about prompt engineering and the depth of expertise from a computer science perspective that they'll need to have to really use these tools as effectively as seniors. And I think we'll get there, but that's something that we're really early in the journey on.
Yeah. I remember an earlier podcast, we talked about how in high school right now, the game is to figure out how not to let students use generative AI. As soon as they're done, they're going to have to figure out how to use it. And so, yeah, we've got a ways to go.
For sure. Sure.
Ingrid, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for being here on the show.
Yeah, Pete, thank you very much for the opportunity, and have a great day.
Thanks as always for listening and watching. Don't forget to leave us a review. A 5-star rating would be really helpful. And we'd really appreciate it if you would share this episode on social media or with other executives you know. Before we go, we always like to ask one of our AI friends to give their input on the show. So, hey Bard, how you been? This episode, we're talking about the biggest boardroom problems in 2024 and how AI can help. So, what do you think?
The talent war of 2024 demands AI allies automate hiring, nurture potential, and anticipate departures before your rivals do. In a volatile world, AI becomes your crystal ball, analyzing data to navigate uncertainty and guide bold decisions.
And now, you're in the know. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next week with more headlines, roundtable discussions, and interviews with AI experts.